Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Today, on this glorious day that we have been given, I have someone who is in a different time paradigm than I am. I am talking with Karen Chaston. How are you today, Karen?
I'm fantastic. Thank you, Emmett. I'm in Australia and it's September, believe it or not.
So that's your spring, correct?
It is our spring. We have started spring, which is great.
So at Christmas time, you guys are doing the barbecue and all that kind of thing, huh?
Exactly.
That would be so awesome.
And I've got a lot of English friends, a lot of American friends, and they come here for Christmas and they just can't do it. It's just like, it's not right. It's not Christmas.
I could deal with it. I could certainly deal with it. My bones hurt in the cold. But you've made a dynamic change in your life, through some sequence, some chain of events. Your life was telling you all the while, there's another way you need to go. But as all of us, we are in our comfort zone. We are in what we know, and our intuition is saying, hey, listen. And we're like, no, I'm good. I'm in my blanket. I'm comfortable. And then you switch. Let's go back in time. What was that life that you inhibited prior to you having your 360-degree awakening?
Well, I like to refer to those days of me living in a Groundhog Day days. And I was a CFO of a publicly listed company, working too much, drinking too much, eating too much, and just totally in survival. But I wasn't even aware of it. I just thought, this is what happens. If you want that job, you want that salary, this is your life.
Right.
And I just had no idea that, no, you don't have to live that way. You can have that job. You can have that salary, and you can still live your life in ease. So amazingly.
Your wake-up call was really rough to go through. You suffered something that most parents can't even imagine. I mean, even they can't even force themselves to even have that thought in your head. And you lost a family member. As a mom, it doesn't get any closer than that, which was a child.
It was. And Dan was 27. He was healthy. He had gone out the night before, and I lent him $100. I should never have done that. Maybe he would have stayed home.
Right.
And he went out. He went out separately to his girlfriend, and he just went out. Had too much to drink, and then the next morning, my husband, about 8:30, it was a Sunday morning. He just went to take the rubbish out as I was looking for breakfast, and he calls out and he, bloody hell, Dan's asleep at the back door. And alarm bells went off because, yes, he did have a habit of drinking too much, but he always made it home to bed. I ran down the stairs really quickly. He was lying in the fetal position, saliva coming out of his mouth, and we were shaking him. And then the paramedics arrived and they said, sorry, he passed a couple of hours ago.
Oh.
So really unexpected. A healthy boy went out, and to find him, dead at our back door, it was horrible. But you know what? I was so much into, I know how to be a CFO. I don't know how to be a grieving mum. So I went straight back to work, working more, eating more, drinking more. It's like, no, I don't even want to know about that. Let's just squash all that, which was so disrespectful for him, so disrespectful for me to not actually honour the fact that we all grieve differently, but we all need to grieve.
Wow.
So,
I hate to say it, but that's a very masculine thing to do, which is...
I was totally in my masculine. Don't say it. I was living in my masculine. I was always angry. Not that men are always angry, but I was always angry. I was so much into this is what success is. And I wasn't honoring myself. And my body screamed the fact that I was like that. I was full of adrenaline, full of cortisol. I was overweight. it was my whole body just said, you are living in your masculine. You are not honoring any part of your feminine. And I wasn't.
So how was your blood pressure during that time?
Oh, bad. Totally bad. I say, honestly, Dan's passing saved my life.
Wow.
And even though it took me another 15, 17 months to actually wake up, I know that if he hadn't have passed, I was heading to either a heart attack, stroke, diabetes, possibly even death. And that's why I say he honestly saved my life through him passing.
Wow. So during this time, you went from being a CEO or CFO to founding your own platform and company, which is Live, Love by Design. What was that process like? I mean, you don't just say one day, all right, I'm done with this. You know, I've gone through some things. I've gone through some incredible situations. And one day you wake up and say, okay, I'm done with that. I'm moving on. There had to be a sequence of events that affected you, your personality, your being. Yeah. And so basically you got God-smacked.
Yeah, a second time. I had to get God-smacked twice because I didn't wake up with the first one. So about 17 months later, when the company I worked for, another company, were merging together, they offered me 2/3 of my current salary. And I just went, no. I realized then that I was only there for the money. I truly needed to stop. And it was the best thing I ever did. So from that process on, I started to really start asking myself some really tough questions. Like, who are you? Where are you at? Where do you want to be? Look at yourself. You know, you are not even yourself. You have become this person who you can't even really recognize. And that's when I started on what I like to call life's university, where I started to learn so many new things, a different perspective, everything. Everything is completely different to who I am. And I have to say it wasn't easy. Like, I was a CFO with a master's degree in accounting, a CPA, certification, to the next day, okay, I'm a woman's expert on how to live your life. And it's like, with what? I didn't have those securities of those bits of paper. And it took a while for me to actually realize you've lived your life as a woman. You know how not to do it. You now know how to do it. And that's what you should be sharing with the world. And I honestly believe that I had to live that life so I could turn around to my clients and everyone and say, do you know what? I've lived your life. I know exactly what you're going through. Let's look at these tools, and I like to call them my Live Love Gems, and start introducing them into your life, and let's see what happens. And everyone goes, oh, my God, I wish I had this when I was younger. And that's what I say all the time. I wish I knew everything I knew now when I was in my 20s. My God, how much better life would have been, how much easier it would have been.
So when you went through this, you had to learn a new way of being, which is existing in this world, existing in your own body, and existing in your own mind and spirit. What are some of those things that you had to push aside so that the new information that makes you come to life?
The first thing was, it is not selfish to put yourself first. Now, we all hear it on a plane. Every time we get on a plane, they say, in case of emergency, put your own oxygen mask on first before you assist others. Well, I've discovered that's what we should be doing every single day. Because the more we look after ourselves first, the more we top ourselves up, then we can give all day. Because we're not in depletion. We're actually thriving, and we can tap dance to work and tap dance home because we have looked after ourselves first.
That's
the one thing that they teach you at school. Oh, you're selfish if you put yourself first. No, it's a requirement.
That's really important, particularly for women, because women often put everybody first at their own detriment. And and this particularly happens in midlife, where you wake up one day and you're reevaluating and we're like, I don't like any of this. And it's because you didn't incorporate yourself along the journey and you put everybody else first, and now they're living their life, and now you're like, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, exactly. But not only that, a lot of the women who have done that, all of a sudden their husbands left, or either, passed away or left for a younger woman, and they are all by themselves. And they're like, why didn't I look after myself? A lot of women don't even know how to, budget, how to look after their own money, because they've given all that away to other people to look after them. And it's like, no, understand who you are. Understand that you are the only person you are going to spend your entire life with. So make sure that you understand everything, every facet of your life. And that's not saying you won't have amazing relationships. You will have better relationships, because when you learn to love yourself, you can love everyone else so much more.
I was wondering about this, and me as a man, and I interview a great deal of women who are very women-centric. And recently I've been doing some research looking into the Me Too movement. I've been looking into feminism, and I've been looking at just conferences. And 90% of the conferences that aren't specific to a topic are very women-centric. Are some of your clients men too, who are saying, I can identify with some of the things that you're going through?
Yes, I do have a lot of men. And I have three sons. Sure, one of them is in spirit, but I have 3 sons. So I'm very conscious that men require this as much as, if not more, than women. Because men need to be in touch with their feminine side. And that's not saying that they're going to go completely one way or the other, but they need to be in touch with their feelings. They need to trust their inner wisdom. We all have intuition. We all need to understand that, the answers are inside. We're so busy looking outside, but men need to look after who they are. So many men, you look at the suicide rate, right? It's like, 70, 80% men over women do suicide. And that's because they haven't connected to who they are. And one thing goes wrong, it's like, oh my God, it's all too much. I'm just going to exit, which is so sad, because no one wants them to exit.
Yeah, and I hate to bring it up, because I've talked with some men in my own life, and I don't mean to get off topic here.
No, this is topic.
But I talked to some men, and they, particularly after they're married and they have children, even young men, they're like, look, my job is to provide and protect. That's it. And if I don't have a job, or, if I'm not contributing the most to the bottom line in the household, where's my worth? And historically, that's been the narrative. And men need to discover that they have more value than just providing food and shelter for the rest of the people. So it's like you said, people need to start owning themselves and say, how can I be the best me so that I can be the best for my entire clan, so to speak, my entire tribe. So I understand fully what you're talking about. But now that we've kind of diverged and brought men into the fold, who is your perfect client? Because that's what we all have to ask ourselves, particularly if we're going in our own business or if we are of service to others. Who am I best going to serve? So who is yours?
My best client are women, young women, who are in a corporate environment, the one who is wanting to get ahead, but they're looking at the women and who they are and how they behave and all those sort of things, and they're thinking, do I have to be that person in that role? If I do have to become her, I don't want that role. So a lot of them are exiting. And it's not good for our companies to have too many men up the top or have no women up the top. It needs to be more women. It doesn't need to be more women. It needs to be more women up there so that we're, at either 70-30. At the moment, it's something like 90, 10%.
Yeah.
Bring it in so that the women are more in there, but in their feminine side. And that's not saying that they're all girly and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, say that again. Say that again, because you just hit a really good point that has been iterated throughout the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast with other guests, is that when women ascend to certain levels, they assume this masculine role and leave much of their femininity on the table and not using that intuition and all that thing that connects you to the earth. So do you see that mostly with a lot of young women because they don't have the framework of what came before them?
Exactly. And that's why I love working with them. I would love to work with the women who are in those roles, but they are so they're so negative. They know everything, and they're like, "This is what got me here. This is how I'm staying." But it's not, because when you have a woman in that role that has not been true to herself, the men do not want to work with her, right? They find her really irritating. I've met so many guys who have said they were excited that a woman was coming in to be CEO. They were excited that she was coming onto the board. But when they had to work with her, they went, "Oh my God, this is so disappointing. She's just another bloke, but she's an angrier bloke." She's really, and it's not. You want the differences, because it's the differences that make the company really flow. And I like to work with, anyone in any level, male, female, whatever, to actually get them to understand that they can have a CEO mentality no matter what role they're in. And the more they look after themselves, the more they're willing to collaborate, the more that they can actually go into their creativity, and the more that they can actually help the company to thrive. And that's what it's more about than just anyone. But it's also, as you touched on earlier, guys sort of are like, "This is who I have to be." And it's like, no, you need to decide who you need to be in all the different roles we play. And we play a lot of roles in one day. So who are you going to be when you come home? You're not going to still be that same person who you were at work. And decide and even do a transition process when you move from one role into the next, even if it's a matter of just doing a breathing exercise as you sit in your car before you walk in home or before you walk out of the office into that meeting. Just understand who you want to be at that moment. And that's what makes the biggest difference.
Do you find that women are, your clientele, the women are having this torn relationship between who they are in the workplace and the role they play when they get home? Because, traditionally, and I'm going back thousands of years, is, most relationships weren't relationships of love. They were relationships of survival, which means this guy had to go out and cut a tree down and he had to go hunt a deer, while this hut where the family was managed by the feminine entity in the relationship and, reared children. Do you see that there's a separation, like, I don't know how to turn this off, or I don't know how to switch modes?
That's a great question. Let's go back and have a look at what the gatherers were, right? Hunters and gatherers. The women who were gatherers, yes, they did do all those traditional roles, but they did it in a group. They did it in a family circle of women, right? They weren't as much in survival as what the men were, because they had that community of women. And that's the biggest thing that I have noticed when women started to really come into the workforce after, the Second World War. They actually went into there, but they didn't have the community of the women. They started back into survival. It was, well, if you have that role, I can't have it. So I'm going to bring you down before you bring me down so I can have it. They weren't as much with the men like in that scenario. And that's why a lot of women in the corporate space are very lonely, because they can't trust women. Too many times they've told them something and it's thrown back at them at a later time. Whereas when you're in your essence and you're in that collaborative state and you actually understand, you have an abundance mindset, and you realize just because you have it doesn't mean I can't have it. Once you start to get into that role, that's what I really love. And that's why when the women rise as women, not only will the men work with them, the women will work with them, but they want to be them as well, because they've become the example.
So do you also see where women become uber competitive in the workspace and just totally just kind of wreck the ideology. And I'm going to say, I have to get this together because I was looking at an interview with Condoleezza Rice when the Me Too movement started to really gain steam in America. And she said something that caught me by surprise, which was so profound. She said, they should understand the objective that they want to achieve before they start saying all these things, because it could backfire where the men that are in the workplace are so leery that they don't want to work with them anyway. So they will kind of push them aside or provide this glass ceiling that they can't overcome. Do you think that's a real thing with like some of the people you're talking about?
Yeah, totally. It totally is. The same thing like happens to me, like when I chose redundancy, right? They offered me that role, that less money, because I was a female. They said, no, we have researched this, and that's what a female gets in this role, and that's what a guy gets in this role, right? And yesterday was Equal Pay Day around the world, right? And when you look at Equal Pay Day, it's an extra 62 days a year a woman has to work to earn the same amount of money as what a guy does in exactly the same role. Now, that's ridiculous.
Wow.
Because it's ridiculous. There is no reason why there should be any basis for a difference of money. If you're doing the role and you're doing it the way that everyone wants you to do, you should be paid exactly the same. It doesn't matter what your gender is.
Someone literally said that to you?
It's fact. Yeah, they said it to me. They say it all the time. And see, the thing is, a lot of women don't know how to ask for things, right? And that in itself makes a lot of this reason happen, the fact that they are paid less. Because you think about it, if you've only got so much money to go around and you have a guy who is continually telling you how great you are, how great he is, continually telling you that he should be on more money, and then you have a woman over here who is working her ass off, but she never asks, who are you going to give the money to?
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. You know,
women need to learn how to ask, and that's what I help them do.
And I just heard this on a podcast I did probably less than a month ago, or that was put out less than a month ago with Mary Kravitz. She said, I realized this after doing some research. She says, a man will go after a job that he is 60% qualified for. A woman won't go for a position unless she's 110% qualified for.
Exactly.
So that
it's probably more like 95. But seriously, so many women, they'll go, no, I can't do that. I can't apply yet. I'll learn that skill and then I'll apply. Whereas you have to love Richard Branson. He says, if you're offered something, just say yes. And if you don't know how to do it, figure it out later. And it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and that used to be the norm. All right, we've diverged enough.
And that's fine. This is great. I love it when a conversation just flows.
So with you, are you doing any outward speaking? Are you putting any groups together? Are you coming out with a book maybe? What's in the works?
I've got 4 books. But my Live, Love, By Design book is the best. That is a compilation of everything. And I've got an online course. Yes, I speak. I'd love more speaking gigs. Really love to come and work with corporate, male, female, doesn't matter. Because I know that through the employees learning everything, how to, live and love and design your own life, you truly will. The company will just flow and grow. It just has to, because everyone understands each other. And, one of the 4 pillars is all about your relationships. To understand who your colleagues are, to understand how they want to be spoken to, as opposed to, Mary wants to be spoken to this way, Fred wants to be spoken this way. As a leader, you need to understand that. You can't just have one way you speak to everyone. You need to form relationships with every single person. They all have value and they all will add to you. And that's what I love about it. And I wish I had this when I was in my corporate space. Oh, my God. I would have been such a better employee. I would have been such a better boss. Oh, my God. I used to tell my staff I do it the quickest way. This is the way you do it. Now, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
There's a million ways to do anything. Why would I assume mine was the right way? It was just
you just said something so profound that I find with these companies that are 20th century mentality versus 21st century. So there are some new companies who are really embracing some things, some scenarios in there and ideologies and cultures, which are, look, as long as you get here and get your job done for the day, I don't care when you get here. What else do you need so that when you are here, you are productive, versus the other mindset, which is what you were talking about. This is how we've always done it. This is how we know to get it done. This is what our numbers say. This is how you're going to do it. And I've seen where the morale of a company has literally nosedived because one thing that you cannot do is, or let me go back to the 80s. My mom and dad were auto workers. And there was this interview and they said, what changed this company around? They said, they asked me my opinion.
Yes. And do you know what? I worked for a company in Australia. It's Dreamworld. It's a theme park. I was there for 14 years and they actually went into receivership. And the receivers came in and they actually said to all of the employees, they didn't even talk to the managers. They said, if this was your company, how would you increase profits? Now, through asking all of the employees, they ended up with 3 new revenue streams and they cut expenses by 20%. Through asking the employees. Now, how many times do management bring in a new thing and they say, right, this is the way we're going to do it. And all of the employees go, but it won't work this way. Why didn't you ask us? We could have told you. You could have just done, tweaked it, this, and it would have flowed. No, we're the managers. This is how you do it. And they wonder why their employees aren't happy. They're wondering why they are losing money. How much money are they leaking by not asking their employees?
I always relate it to 2 things. The king, and most people have a misconception of the king. The king always has a court. He has a finance guy. He has a civics guy. He has a person for some infrastructure, and he has a people interaction guy. And the king doesn't make a decision. The king goes and asks all these people these questions. Then he comes up with an answer, says, oh, okay, I have all the input. And the other thing is the military. So militaries would not be successful if they didn't send in those little troops to find out what's going on, then come back with information. And it seems to be missing in some companies. As you see now, it's global. It's not just here in the States as well.
It's everywhere. And it has been for centuries. And the funny thing about it, isn't it? And I guess, and I do love Richard Branson, but Richard Branson is actually how you described. He was dyslexic at school, and he says, I am never the smartest person in the room. I make sure I surround myself with smart people. They give me the answers, and then I decide. But he just doesn't, he's not the one. And look how successful he is. All through asking questions. Everything in your life comes back to the quality of the questions that you ask, either of yourself or of others.
That's so awesome. So you've got a crowdfunding campaign that's happening, and it's Live, Love, and Give Back to Teens.
Yes.
So how did that come about? Give me the whole skinny on it.
Okay. When I was 16, I was pregnant and I ended up adopting my daughter out. And through the years, I've always thought, did I make the right decision? I would have loved to have been able to live a sliding doors life. And then as I got older, and then when I came into Live, Love by Design, I actually went, gee, it would have been great if I knew what I knew now back then. How different would have my life been? And my third book is called Teenagers Playing Grown-Ups, and it's the story of 4 teenagers, 4 pregnant, and the journey that they go on, but up until their 50s, where they do look back at their life and they do actually say, would I have chosen different knowing what I know now? So through all of this, I actually thought, I really want to help young women who have had an unexpected pregnancy. Doesn't matter what choice they make, whether they decided to get married, to abort their baby, to become a single mother, or to adopt their child out. I just want to be able to sponsor them into my online program, Live Love Keys to a Young Woman's Success program, which is a 25-week program. And that's what the crowdfunding is about, helping me to raise money so that we can give back and find these young women and help them to actually understand, even if you've kept your child, you don't have to give up on your dreams. You can still achieve everything, and you don't have to go off and have 10 different kids with 10 different guys. You can actually learn to love who you are first and still become a really valued member of society.
That's awesome.
That's what it's about.
So how can people contact you?
Okay, so they can go to any of my websites, which the main one is livelovebydesign.com. And from there, they can contact me. They can see the crowdfunding campaign, or they can email me, which is Karen@karenchaston.com.au, and the AU is obviously Australia.
And that's CHASTON, because
Correct.
when you hear it, particularly in the States, you think of, like I said, the bank earlier, Chase Bank,
Yes.
but it's CHASTON, Karen
Yes.
Chaston.
Yeah. And there'll be links below this video that, they can just all, Yes.
All right. So you have to close your eyes now.
Okay.
So you're sitting on your couch. You probably just killed a big spider because you're in Australia.
We don't kill spiders.
No, they kill everything else.
Spiders are lucky.
So you're sitting on your couch. You're having a nice beverage. Everyone's gone. You have that moment to yourself, and you're like, I can just relax. And just as you get in the mode, you hear a knock at the door. And you say to yourself, who could this be? I'm not expecting anyone. And you go to the door, and then you open up the door, and you find the 16-year-old you. And she says, I know you have some information for me. I don't have much time. Give it to me in less than a minute.
It would be to love yourself first, to know that you are the only person you're going to spend your entire life with. So put yourself first. Learn everything about yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then go out and have the best relationships with every single person that you encounter. If you do those things, you'll be the biggest success. You will have the most amazing experiences. You will just live and love your entire life.
So awesome. I have another question that just popped into my head.
Yeah.
So do you work with many women who are between the ages of 37 and 60?
Yes.
Now, this is a physical question.
Yes.
Do you find that women have a separation from their bodies? They don't know their bodies yet, and that's one of the things that they need to incorporate into their life?
Yes. They need to learn to love every single part of themselves, totally. My son just got married to a beautiful lady. She's 33, and she's Polish. They live in Australia. And she knew her body so well that she has never, ever taken the pill.
Wow.
Exactly. When she told me that, I went, how did you not become pregnant? She says, I know my body so well. Now, that is when I heard that, I just went, oh, my God, this is incredible, right?
That's a true connection to the feminine right there.
Totally. But she's also in touch with her masculine as well. She knows what she wants, and which is great, and all those sort of things. But to know yourself so well, that is the way, in my opinion, every woman should come to that. Because let's face it, when you know your body so well, you are going to eat properly. You are going to make sure everything that you do in your life is making sure that you have the energy and to actually do everything. I know. It's incredible, isn't it? I'm so
Yeah,
glad I brought that up.
that was
I
my
loved
goal.
your reaction. I loved your reaction to that.
Yeah, because, I'm just really getting to know my physical essence. And mine has these cycles that really revolve around the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Everyone knows, steer clear for a couple of days because I'm about to turn like 80 foot tall and turn green and have super muscles and going to be really aggro. After this 5th day, we're going to be good. Well, I want to thank
you can go around that.
I want to thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. And one last thing, is there one thing that you can tell the Billionaire Lifestyle audience?
When you exit this realm, this lifetime, make sure you have no regrets. Start living your life so that you have no regrets. Whether it's something physically you wanted to do, whether it's a relationship, learn to live and forgive and have no regrets. That's the best way you can live your life.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do it. So, if you're listening to this right now, you've just heard an awesome woman give you some great advice. But I want you to do this. I need you to really appreciate yourself. I really need you to understand the trinity of you. We've got this thing that's called the law of attraction, but you cannot attract things if your gravity is too low, which means if you don't love yourself. So as I always say, when you get out the shower, instead of hurrying up to brush your teeth and get your hair, just take a minute, wipe the fog off the mirror, drop the towel, and look at the glory of the body that you inhabit. You are a spiritual being having a physical experience. As above, so below. And that only goes for heaven and earth, but it goes from mind to body, because whatever your mind thinks, your body will follow. As above, so below. Get close, look into the mirror, look into the eyes of yourself, which are like galaxies. As above, so below. When you find someone who is just like you, has those galaxies between, that thing that brings life in those canals between those eyes, treat them with love and respect as you have gained from looking in the mirror. Till next time, I love you all. Treat everyone justly. And if they don't treat you justly, keep it pushing. Till next time, peace.